All right, ladies and gentlemen, so today we're going to be working on solving multi-step inequalities, and the great part is that the rules are still the same as they were for equations. So our first step, we're actually only going to be doing two-step equations. So the first thing we have to do is to cancel the constant. Then we're going to cancel the coefficient. And then we're going to graph it. So when I'm looking at number 1, I have 3x minus 4 is less than or equal to 23. So I have to get x by itself, cancel the subtracting 4 first by adding 4. And this is just like what we did with our equations. These are actually even a little bit simpler. So 23 plus 4 is 27. Now we have to cancel the coefficient by dividing because they're being multiplied. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. Which gives me x is less than or equal to 9. For my graph, I have to put 9 in the center, 2 above, 2 below. My circle goes at 9. I'm going to check if I have to color it in, and I do because it has the line. And I have to shade for numbers that are less than 9, which means going towards the 7 and the 8. So there it is. You can always do a check to make sure you shaded the right way. So let's just show what a check looks like. But unless it says we're equal to, you can't pick the 9. But I want to pick a different number to make sure I shaded the right way. So I'm going to pick the 8. So that means I'm going to put, wherever I have x, I'm going to put my 8 in. So I'm going to have 3 times 8 minus 4 less than or equal to 23. 3 times 8 is 24. And then 24 minus 4 is 20, which is less than 23. So I know I shaded the correct way. All right, so that's how you do those checks for those. For number 2, right, I have to cancel my 4, so I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. Now this time my coefficient is negative, and you have to remember from before, if your coefficient is negative, when you do your dividing or multiplying, you're going to end up flipping that sign. So we're going to divide both sides by -2, but then, right, my sign switches to greater than, and 12 divided by -2 is -6. So we put -6 in the middle, 2 higher, 2 lower, and my circle is going to be an open circle because there's no or equal to sign. And I need numbers that are greater than -6, so I'm going to head towards -4. So this time, if I do my check, I'm going to pick 0 because eventually it would get to 0. So -2 times 0 plus 4 is less than 16. So -2 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 4 is 4, which is definitely less than 16. So that's, again, another way that I can do a check to make sure that I went the correct way. For number 3, so now I have to cancel -4, so I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So x over 5 is less than -4, and 4 is 0. This is a dividing, so to cancel dividing, I have to multiply. So I'm going to multiply by 5, so x is less than 0. So on my number line, we have 0, 1, 2, -1, -2. We're going to do the open circle because there's no line. X is less than 0, which means I'm shading towards -1, -2. Again, if I check it, I'm actually going to pick -5 because it's easy to put in here. So if I put in -4 plus -5 divided by 5, right, you can pick any number that's less than 0 for your check. So -1 divided by, -5 divided by 5 is -1, and -5 is less than -4. So I know I went the right way. For number 4, we have to cancel, so even though it's on the other side, I still know what I'm supposed to do. I have to cancel the 3, it's a positive, so I'm going to subtract. So that gives me 10 is less than or equal to 2x. Divide both sides by 2, so 5 is less than or equal to x. So on my number line, we have 5, 6, 7, 3, 4. This this time my circle is going to be a closed circle because it has the line. And 5 has to be less than what x is, which means x has to be greater. And again, I'm going to do a check to make sure I went the right way. So I'm going to fill in 6 just because it's the next easiest number. So I need to know 13 is less than or equal to 3 plus 2 times 6. 2 times 6 is 12. And 3 plus 12 is 15. So I did go the right way. 13 is less than or equal to 15. All right, I would like you to pause your video. And I want you to try 5 and 6. And then we will fill in our steps. So pause it and then try 5 and 6. Okay, so for number 5, in this problem you had a negative coefficient, the -2 there, which means I had to flip the sign, so I did it in a different color. So you should have gotten x is greater than -12, which means open circle at -12 and your arrow's going to the right. For number 6, this was another one where you had a negative coefficient. There's really a little -1 here in front of that x. So I had to divide, which means my sign flipped, and you can see that I did checks. All right, for the steps, I clearly was not paying attention, but we're just going to say see above, because we already wrote those out. The 4th step, though, is to do the check. So if you want to add that in, but the other ones we already put up above. All right, we have a couple questions on the next page. Write an inequality. The difference of twice times a number and 5 is no more than 22. So the difference means subtract. What am I subtracting? 2 times a number, 2x, and 5 is no more than. So no more than, if you go back to that very first page of notes we had, is less than or equal to 22. No more than. All right, the sum tells me to add. What am I adding? 4 times a number, 4x, and -8. So we're actually going to write that as 4x minus 8 is at least 10. So at least 10 means greater than or equal to 10. All right, recall that the symbol not equal to, if x represents a positive integer, state whether each of the following statements is always true, sometimes true, or false. So if x is a positive integer means it can't be fractions or decimals. So that means here, this one is always true, because it can be 1 or it can be bigger. Those are your positive integers. For number 10, x is less than 0. Well, positive integers can never be less than 0. So this is false. And x doesn't equal 5. Well, this is sometimes true because it depends. Because if you have 5, then that makes it false. All right, any questions? As always, bring them to class and have a good night.